Alright, so I'm gonna do a tactical video. It's pretty short, I think, on allies for Sisters of Battle, because this is a big change for 6th edition. It's something that you didn't have to think about in 5th edition. Certainly with the old Witch Hunters Codex, there were allies in it, but you didn't get to pick things out of another codex, a different army. So let's look at Sisters of Battle and what they can ally with. And when you're taking allies, you really have to think, what hole am I filling in my army? Because there's some considerations with the allies rules. Just to run through them, there are really 4 levels of allies: Battle Brothers, Allies of Convenience, Desperate Allies, and Not an Ally. Only in an Apocalypse game. So the best probably level is Battle Brother. Essentially, Battle Brothers are considered friendly units. Your independent characters can join them. You can use psychic powers on them, which is irrelevant for Sisters of Battle. But they could have psychic powers used on them by friendly Battle Brother allies. So Primaris Psyker from the Imperial Guard Codex can use his psychic powers on Sisters of Battle. That's not necessarily bad, and since he can join a Sisters squad, they benefit from having a Psyker in the squad when they're targeted by psychic powers. No matter what, however, you can never get in a transport from an allied codex, which means the Sisters cannot get inside the Vendetta, or a Chimera, or pretty much anything other than their own transports. Now, there's some situations where this is not exactly the case. If you are using Imperial armor, some of those vehicles basically, say that that it goes from different codices, so you can take a Sisters Avenger, which isn't really a transport, but you can take a vehicle and call it a Sisters vehicle or a Guard vehicle. If you do that, however, and you're using allies, you do have to specify at the beginning of the game, when you make your war list, is this an Imperial Guard vehicle or a Sisters of Battle vehicle? Alright, Allies of Convenience, this is what most of your allies are going to be. They work together. They're considered enemy for targeting of psychic powers, so you can't pick them, but Sisters don't have any. You can't voluntarily put templates and blast markers over them, but they are not considered friendly units for purposes of charging and things like that. Your warlords can't ever join them. Your independent characters can't join them. And the reverse, the Allies of Convenience independent characters can't join the Sisters units, and they can't use their psychic powers on them. So if you take Space Marines and you give them divination, which you're probably going to do, they can't use that divination power from their librarian on the Sisters of Battle. And then there's Desperate Allies, and when 6th edition came out, I was trying to figure out ways to use these really effectively, but I don't think there are great effective uses for them unless you just have an awesome, Dark Eldar list and you really want to play some with your Sisters of Battle in a fun game. I don't think they're competitive because they never score, they don't deny, so you're going to be forced to take an HQ and a troop unit that are just bodies on the battlefield. And then if you put them within 6 inches of Sisters of Battle, or the vice versa, the one eye open rule means there's a good chance you're just going to stand there. 1 in 6 chance every round that the units are going to stand and stare at each other and do nothing. So I think Desperate Allies is kind of pointless. So actually, to run through that, what are the Desperate Allies for the Sisters of Battle? It would be the Black Templar, and I'm not really sure why that is. Fluff-wise, it doesn't necessarily make sense. The Dark Eldar, the Eldar, the Necrons, and the Tau. There's nothing in any of these lists that you can't pick up from either a Blood Brother or a Ally of Convenience. So I don't think you're missing really anything from not being able to take those. I mean, who knows what they're going to come out with say, the new Tau Codex one day, if it ever comes out, just like the next Sisters Codex one day, if it ever comes out. But I don't think you're really missing much. In terms of your Blood Brothers, I mean, that's your Imperial Guard. And this is probably the best army for filling in the big gaps for the Sisters. Because what do Sisters of Battle not have? They don't have anything that is strength 9 or 10 base in their codex, other close, but otherwise they can't shoot downrange and drop a template or a las cannon or anything like that. Imperial Guard, they fixed this because you can take las cannons with their basic troop units. They have a pretty cheap troop choice. A veteran squad is quite cheap. It's considered a scoring unit with the sisters. They're battle brothers, so even a sisters independent character can join them. They have vehicles that have phenomenal armor values, 14 on a Lehman Russ. They have flyers, they have vendettas, they have Valkyries, just out of their core book. So they have flyers. They are probably, in my personal opinion, the best allies for the sisters because they fill in the gaps of the sisters, which is no large blast templates and no strength 9 or 10 weapons. So, Guard fill that in. But, if you want to do something else, a little variation, point-wise, obviously your Space Marines. And that would be Blood Angels, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Grey Knights, Space Wolves, and your vanilla Space Marines. Those are all allies of convenience. So their troop choices are scoring. If you were to take the new Dark Angels Codex when it comes out, it'll probably have some cool things in it that the sisters can use to fill in their weak spots. Certainly the Space Marines do. They've got strength 9 weapons. They can take las cannons with their Space Marine squads. They can take Terminator units, which are pretty good close combat units. They can take drop pods. So Space Marines can fill in some gaps for the sisters. They have flyers, not as cheap as a Vendetta or a Valkyrie, but they have flyers. An important thing to think about, the only unit that comes with Skyfire right now that the sisters can ally with are Guard. They have the Hydra, but it's quite likely that the Space Marines are going to get Skyfire missile launchers. I'm pretty sure we'll see it in the Dark Angels Codex when it comes out. So, Space Marines, any of those codices are good choices for Sisters of Battle. They can fill in that weak spot. The only difference is, from my opinion, is that the Imperial Guard are cheap. You can get units that fill in the weak spots in the Sisters Codex fairly inexpensively in terms of points. Space Marines, you pay a little more for what you get. Now, they're better at combat. They're about the same for shooting if you take veterans versus Space Marines, but Space Marine vehicles are better at shooting. So Space Marines may cost more, but they're tougher. So sort of an equal tie there. When I say Space Marines, I mean all the different various chapters that you could take. So, and then if you look at Imperial Armor, the options from Forge World with Space Marines and Imperial Guard are phenomenal. The options for Sisters of Battle are not. The only thing that they have is a repressor, and then various vehicles that they share with the other Imperial units, like the Avenger, Flyer. So, summary, what do you get from Battle Brother? You get the ability to take a Psyker. My personal experience with it is it's actually not worth it. I'd rather take a Master of Ordnance or a Astropath. It helps me with my reserve rolls as opposed to the Psyker, just because psychic powers are just a little too random, and the Guard ones aren't as good as the Space Marine ones. But you get these as Battle Brothers. With any of the Space Marine codices, you get solid combat units. You get scoring units because they're friendly in that regard, but you can't join them. However, for the most part, I don't think you really have to. I don't think you're hurting a lot by not having your Warlord join a Tactical Marine squad or even a bunch of Terminators. So that consideration, the Space Marine psychic powers don't get to target you, which is a disadvantage because you don't get any of the divination boosts, but you gotta live with it. So I would say for your allies, Blood Brothers are my personal first choice because the diversity of vehicles that fill in the weak spots, but Space Marines are a good option. And then I would actually just say, don't bother with any of the Desperate Allies unless you just really are a die-hard Xenos player and you've got a lot of really cool things. You know, what do you get from any of those lists that you don't get from the Guard or a Marines Codex? And the answer is really nothing. You could get flyers, you could get strength 10, 9 weapons, you could get all sorts of things that would be useful from a Xenos list, but you could get the same things and benefit more from them from a list that was Allies of Convenience or Battle Brothers. The only exception is, if you really wanted to run like a cool themed battle with some backstory to it, something out of a novel, in which case you might actually take a Xenos ally just for the story value of it. In that case, you could also just ignore the allies matrix if you really wanted to run something themed and everyone agreed to it. But that's the review.